What if I told you that the reason you're exhausted, anxious, and silently resenting everyone around you is because you're trying to control people who are never meant to be controlled? Your boss, your partner, your family, your friends. And what if the most powerful life-altering tool isn't fighting harder, but simply saying two words that feel almost dangerous? Let them. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you. Let them disappoint you. Because the moment you stop gripping so tightly to how others behave is the moment your life finally begins to feel free. This isn't weakness. This is psychological rebellion. And once you hear what Mel Robbins discovered, you'll never struggle the same way again. Hello, everyone. Hi, all, and welcome to Book Podcast Zone. Today, we are about to embark on something that I think feels less like a typical analysis and more like a massive emotional decluttering.
That's a great way to put it.
Our source material is drawn from the insights of Mel Robbins' really phenomenal work, The Let Them Theory. We've sort of distilled it from 16 powerful chapters into what we hope is a practical guide for letting go of that draining burden of control.
It really is a blueprint for psychological freedom, and our mission today is, well, it's pretty ambitious.
Right.
We aren't just summarizing the book. Our goal is to dive deep into the actionable mechanics of it. We're translating the neuroscience, the very candid personal stories, and all the hard-won insights into immediate liberation for you.
The goal being to move you from that state of constant exhausted fighting.
Exactly. Fighting against reality. Moving from that to a state of, well, internal empowerment.
I think that shift you just mentioned is the absolute key takeaway here. This isn't passive self-help advice.
Not at all.
It's a complete overhaul of where you decide to invest your finite emotional and mental energy.
Precisely. We're calling this the liberating exhale.
I like that.
Just think for a moment about the invisible chains that so many of us forge every single day, chains created by our desperate need to manage external outcomes, to fix other people's flaws, or to prevent negative opinions from ever forming about us.
Which is impossible.
Totally impossible. And this theory gives you the tools to kind of unravel those chains. It allows you to redirect that monumental energy inward toward the things you can genuinely impact.
Your choices, your actions.
Your choices, your actions, and your boundaries. That's it. That's the whole game.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Part 1 is really about understanding the theory. It's the wake-up call. Let's unpack Chapter 1, which really serves as that necessary jolt. The core revelation here is pretty stark.
It is.
It says the vast majority of our low-level anxiety and chronic suffering, it doesn't come from some big external catastrophe.
Yeah.
It comes from battling things we cannot possibly win against.
Specifically, other people's choices and opinions.
Exactly.
And Robbins anchors this concept not in some abstract philosophy, but in a spectacular, deeply relatable personal story, the famous prom story.
Right.
She just paints this vivid picture of her frantic, almost maniacal scramble to orchestrate the perfect night for her son's high school prom.
Oh, I can feel the stress just thinking about it. She was trying to manage every single variable, right?
Every single one. The photo timing, the transportation logistics, coordinating groups of teenagers, which is, like herding cats.
Impossible.
She was even trying to anticipate their emotional outcomes.
It's the definition of trying to manage chaos. And of course, it all fell apart.
It spiraled.
So why do we do that? Why do we feel so compelled to micromanage things that are inherently outside our control, like, I don't know, traffic or the unpredictable moods of teenagers?
Because the brain interprets a lack of control as a survival threat. It's ancient wiring.
Okay.
When you try to exert high effort for a situation where the outcome is fundamentally uncertain, like finding a parking spot in a packed lot or making sure everyone is on time, you enter what we call a control attempt stress loop.
A stress loop.
Right. And this constant high effort coordination just spikes your body's level of cortisol. That's the chronic stress hormone. So you end up trapped in this state of high alert, perpetually running on the fumes of the fight or flight response, even when you are totally safe.
And that's what leads to that deep, bone-weary exhaustion.
That's the exhaustion of fighting reality. Yes.
But the turning point in her story, the moment that unlocks this entire theory, it comes from the simplest, most unexpected source.
It does. It's her daughter's casual, almost bored comment in the middle of all this chaos. She just says, just let them.
Just 2 words.
2 words. And that phrase instantly flips the internal script. It's the shift from being the frantic fixer, the person desperately trying to catch every falling plate.
To becoming the free observer, the person who just acknowledges the plates are falling
Yeah.
and strategically steps back from the mess.
Exactly. And Robbins describes this spark of massive, immediate, almost physiological relief in that moment. That's the instant the prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, starts to regain control from the overwhelmed amygdala.
I think this is so profoundly relevant for anyone listening right now. Just juggling this overwhelming stream of notifications and information.
Oh, absolutely.
We feel this pressure to control every narrative, how our boss perceives our commitment on Slack 24/7, how our family sees our career choices, or, how some viral social media thing might unfold.
It's the compulsion to manage external perception, which is ultimately a losing game.
Right.
And if we apply this to a major U.S. live example, you don't have to look any further than the intense political landscape we all navigate.
Oh, for sure. The emotional and mental drain around an election cycle is just enormous.
It is. People dedicate hours of emotional labor trying to endlessly persuade family members, friends, even strangers online who hold these deeply ingrained opposing views. There's this intense, exhausting internal pressure to change their minds.
And it almost never works. It feels like the definition of wasted energy.
Exactly. The let them response here is twofold. First, recognizing you can't control the outcome of the vote or the worldview of another person. And second, realizing that you can control your boundaries. You control how much news you consume, who you engage with, and the respect you maintain for your own time and sanity.
So you stop trying to control the political storm.
You can't. You control your umbrella. Letting go of the need to change their minds is the only sustainable way to keep your energy.
Wow, okay, that's a huge insight right there. And if this is already hitting home for you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more updates as we continue to the next powerful chapter. That reframing controlling your umbrella leads perfectly into Chapter 2, which introduces the core mechanics. It's not just about stopping the fight, it's about redirection.
Yes.
It's this simple, powerful two-step dance, let them and let me.
And this dual approach is exactly why the theory is so potent. If it were purely let them, it could sound like passive surrender, like you're just giving up.
Right, like learned helplessness or something.
But it's not. It's an active reallocation of your most precious resources, your time, your attention, and your energy.
So let them is the active release. It's dropping the rope on other people's actions, their reactions, their expectations. You just stop battling that external current.
And let me is the immediate active turn inward. It's where you fuel your own moves, your own priorities, and your own life design. Instead of letting your worth be defined by what others are doing, you define your worth by what you are actively doing.
It seems like that would immediately reduce your cognitive load. You just have fewer things to worry about.
Way fewer external variables to track. And Robbins illustrates this so well with the scenario that is, acutely painful in our hyper-connected world.
The social media sting.
The sting of scrolling past a group trip on Instagram only to realize you weren't invited, that immediate, visceral, heart-sinking feeling of rejection.
Ugh, yeah. That feeling is rooted in that ancient social wiring, right? The fear of being kicked out of the tribe.
Absolutely. When you see that post, your brain defaults to the victim narrative. I'm unworthy, they don't like me. Your focus is entirely on their action, the let-them behavior of exclusion.
And then you fall into that trap of analyzing their motivations, which is a black hole you can never get out of because you'll never know.
Right. The victory shift happens when you apply the dual model. You acknowledge the social betrayal, the let-them exclusion, but you refuse to dwell there.
You pivot.
You instantly switch to let me. You take that negative energy and you redirect it. Maybe you set up a deeper, more meaningful coffee with someone who is aligned with you, or you plan a solo trip you've always wanted to take.
The power instantly shifts back to you.
Yeah.
The slight, which first made you feel like a passive victim, it becomes an opportunity for proactive, positive self-definition.
And it balances the power dynamic. Relationship psychology backs this up. It prevents the two big traps. Either constantly trying to control people, which is a superiority thing, or constantly stewing in your own hurt, which is resentment. It helps you build authentic bonds from a place of sufficiency, not neediness.
Let's turn this into a U.S. live example. Think about the intense pressure of keeping up appearances in competitive cities like New York or L.A. You see your friends constantly posting these lavish international vacations, expensive home renovations, all this high-end lifestyle stuff.
That visibility creates intense, chronic comparison, a constant feeling of, I'm not doing enough, or I don't have enough.
So how does let them work there?
Let them means releasing the judgment of their spending, their lifestyle choices, or the feeling that you must replicate their life to be happy. You just let them have their speed and their choices.
And the counter move, let me. What does that look like in that high-pressure environment?
It means actively choosing a different metric for your own success. Maybe let me means aggressively building a personal savings goal for a down payment on a house. Or let me means focusing on a local creative project you love, or volunteering. It's a deliberate, conscious redirection of that envious energy back into your own self-development that doesn't need Instagram validation.
We're just scratching the surface of regaining ownership. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and let's dive into managing the stress that inevitably crashes the party. Okay, so we've established the redirection strategy. Now let's talk about the unavoidable reality of stress, which brings us to Chapter 3. Mel Robbins is brutally honest here.
She is.
Stress isn't some moral failing. It's just an uninvited, unavoidable guest crashing your brain's party.
And that distinction is so crucial. So many people internalize stress as a sign of failure. I should be better organized, I should be more disciplined, I shouldn't be overwhelmed.
Right. But the source material makes it clear that stress is just a byproduct of living in a complex, demanding world. It's going to happen.
The key insight is that stress hijacks your rational mind. When your primitive brain, the amygdala, is running the show, you are operating from a reactive state, not a strategic one.
Yeah, that's where the neurobiology comes in.
Yep. The amygdala, our threat detection center, it evolved to identify massive threats, like a predator, but today it is constantly being triggered by small, modern sparks. The simmering rage at a slow cashier, a friend's endless venting session about the same problem for the 5th time, or that aggressive email subject line that just pops into your inbox.
Your amygdala doesn't know the difference.
It just sees a threat to your resources, your time, or your emotional stability. And these minor triggers cause a major internal stress cascade, flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline.
Robin shares a powerful turning point about this. It was a tense confrontation during a run in the park, right? An aggressive runoff with another person.
Yes. And instead of allowing her amygdala to trigger a defensive or retaliatory response, which would be the default for most of us, she deployed the theory instantly.
She whispered, "Let them." How does that simple phrase actually work as an intervention when you're facing an immediate threat?
It acts as an interrupt. It's a cognitive pause button. It disrupts the instantaneous signal from the amygdala to the rest of your body, which would otherwise kick off a fight or flight response.
So it buys you a second.
It buys you a critical second. By whispering, "let them," she forces a minimal recruitment of the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. And that brief pause allows her to take a calm stride, to acknowledge the other person's chaotic energy without absorbing it or reacting to it. She retains her power by choosing not to escalate.
This is so vital, especially when you hear stats like 7 in 10 adults today are wired for chronic worry. We are walking around constantly primed for escalation.
We are saturated with minor stressors. The let them whisper becomes a critical, accessible tool for emotional regulation. Think about the uniquely high-stress U.S. experience of rush hour traffic, like the D.C. Beltway or the 405 freeway in L.A.
Oh, traffic is the ultimate symbol of the uncontrollable. You are literally trapped.
And if you lean into the rage, the honking, the shouting, the escalating, you're only punishing your own internal system. Your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure rises, and your day is ruined, all while you move nowhere faster.
So what's the application?
The immediate application of let them means letting the traffic be what it is. You accept the reality of the congestion, and then you focus on a quick breathing exercise. You choose to control your internal state, your emotional climate, while the external environment stays chaotic.
Understanding stress is key, but using it is power. Stay tuned, and please like, subscribe, and share this vital knowledge. Building on that acceptance of stress, Chapter 4 shifts from just managing it to actually leveraging it. The goal isn't to eliminate it, because that's impossible, but to prevent it from becoming destructive by channeling it into smart, strategic action.
Right. Stress only becomes destructive when we allow it to trigger a purely emotional, reactive response that paralyzes us. And the core battlefield for this is often the workplace.
The classic scenario she gives is so relatable. You're consistently hitting your goals, you're working diligently, but you watch promotions continually slip away to other people, and it just fuels this intense bitterness.
And that bitterness is destructive stress. It focuses all your energy outward on the perceived unfairness of the system or the incompetence of your manager, instead of inward on what you can actually do.
So the power shift happens when you realize that feeling of being overlooked, has to transform from bitterness into boundary-setting power.
You're surrendering to the current reality. The system is what it is right now, but you're using the heat of that stress to strategize.
A strategic move might be initiating a performance review to clearly state your case, or it might just be updating your resume and plotting an exit.
Exactly. It's the difference between fighting the symptoms, which is complaining about being overlooked, and treating the cause, which is your lack of a defined strategic path forward.
To handle this, the source material gives us a really practical, repeatable tool, the ABC loop. It's something you deploy the moment stress hits.
Yes. Assess, breathe, choose.
Walk us through those steps again, but apply them directly to a workplace stressor. Let's say you get a massive last-minute assignment that just wrecks your weekend plans.
Okay, perfect example. First, assess. What is the factual reality?
Yep.
The reality is, I have a new deadline, not my boss hates me and my life is awful.
You separate the fact from the emotional story you're telling yourself?
Correct. Second, breathe. You interrupt that flood of adrenaline. Take 3 slow, deep breaths to reactivate your rational mind. And third, choose. Select a strategic action. That action might be politely negotiating a more realistic timeline, or maybe it's choosing to delegate a lower priority task to make room.
So the stress gets channeled into effective prioritization, not just reactive complaining.
You're using the energy for good. And this is incredibly relevant for anyone in the modern workforce, especially those in the gig economy or facing job landscapes that are being rapidly shifted by AI.
Right. The stress isn't about if the market changes, it's about the uncertainty of the future.
That market change is unavoidable. Your emotional response is not. If you use the ABC loop on the stress of AI displacement, you assess the new skill demands, you breathe through the panic, and you choose. You enroll in a new certification, you focus on relationship building where AI is weak, or you chart a new career path rather than just despairing about the inevitable.
From workplace strategy to silencing the inner critic, we're shifting gears. If you find this guide helpful, like, subscribe, and share for part 3.
Okay, so we're moving into the social minefield of perception. Part 3 is all about fearing other people's opinions.
And Chapter 5 tackles what is arguably the most insidious form of self-sabotage, the fear of what other people think. Mel Robbins confronts the invisible audience we all carry around.
Those hypothetical, judgmental figures that hold us hostage and keep us playing small.
The fear of the side eye, it's paralyzing. We stop innovating, we stop pursuing unconventional goals, we stop using our authentic voice, all because of a projected fear of criticism.
Robbins' framing of it is so good. Opinions are noise. Your life is the signal you should be sending. That is the necessary shift. When we prioritize the noise, the fear of hypothetical negative judgments, we are actively muting our own signal, our own contribution to the world.
She shares a powerful personal example of how this fear locked her down. She talks about a 2-year freeze she imposed on herself.
Right, about sharing speaking clips and taking some specific high-risk business actions. So she had the talent, but the fear of being judged, of sounding silly, or facing criticism from strangers, the fear of the noise, it was stronger than the momentum of her actual potential.
So that internalized fear of what other people might think just paralyzed her progress.
Completely. And the pivotal moment was the realization that this self-imposed freeze was actively blocking her confidence and preventing real opportunities from landing. When she finally thawed that freeze and started making those bold launches, the critics were still there.
The noise didn't stop.
The noise didn't stop, but she had gained so much internal momentum that the noise just became irrelevant.
We should probably anchor this in some psychology. Studies on judgment are pretty illuminating, right?
They are. Most of the intense judgments people make about others stem directly from the judger's own insecurities, their internal conflicts, or their unresolved issues, not the subject's actions. It's almost always projection.
So when someone critiques your bold move or your new career path, they're often just revealing their own fears about taking similar risks.
Exactly. This chapter is profoundly empowering, especially in the context of cancel culture anxiety, which is a significant U.S. concern right now. That anxiety creates a massive chilling effect, making people hold back their true voice for fear of being misinterpreted or publicly shamed.
The let them stance here becomes like armor. It's self-trust.
You release the need to control how a hostile or reactive public perceives you, and you focus instead on your own integrity and your core signal.
Let's use a U.S. live example. Say a person starting a niche, unconventional side hustle, maybe leaving a high-status corporate job in Chicago to open a small, artisanal bakery in a rural town.
The fear of judgment from their professional peers would be immense. The ones who view this creative life as unserious, or a waste of their MBA.
That fear can be crippling.
But the let them stance allows that individual to pursue fulfillment and genuine purpose over perceived status. They let their former peers whisper and judge while they focus on the signal, the joy, the artistry, and the quiet success of their authentic creation.
Once we stop fearing the critic, we can start loving the difficult people in our lives. Like, subscribe, and share before we tackle empathy.
Which brings us to Chapter 6, How to Love Difficult People. This introduces a necessary layer of sophisticated empathy. It challenges us to deal with difficult people not by trying to fix their annoying behaviors, but by understanding the source of those behaviors.
This is the concept of seeing their frame. We stop taking their behavior personally and start trying to understand the pain and history that created it.
Exactly. We have to unpack the necessity of viewing others through the lens of their past pains, their traumas, and their fears, what we can call their trauma gaps.
The goal isn't to let them off the hook.
Right. Not at all. The goal is to hold space for their pain without allowing them to violate your personal boundaries in the present. You're acknowledging their history without permitting their negativity to become your problem today.
It's a powerful shift because it reframes judgment into observation. You start to understand that their current difficult reaction is often a reflexive response to their history, not a targeted critique of you.
Robbins uses a deeply human example of healing generational rifts, specifically getting a cool, distant reaction from a mother-in-law about an engagement.
The natural reaction would be to get defensive.
Right. But instead, she consciously viewed the behavior through the lens of the mother-in-law's own history of loss and disappointment. And when she did that, the distance closed. The coolness was reframed not as personal rejection, but as profound caution born from pain.
So she didn't require the other person to change. She changed her perception of the behavior,
which allowed her to respond with kindness and patience instead of matching the coldness. And this is so critical, especially with the rising complexities of modern family, life-blended families, second marriages, all of it.
You're constantly interacting with people whose histories and pain points you simply cannot control.
You can't. Let's take the classic U.S. Live example. The argumentative family member at the Thanksgiving table.
Everyone have one.
They say something inflammatory, and everyone else immediately goes defensive or aggressive. That's where the blowouts happen, because everyone starts trying to fix the other person's opinion.
But if you apply, let them.
You view that outburst not as a personal challenge, but as a predictable reaction stemming from their own deep-seated fear or unresolved pain. This allows you to respond with neutrality, even compassion, instead of combat. You simply let them have their frame, and you retain your peace.
Seeing the source of the behavior is crucial, especially when grown-ups act like children. Like, subscribe, and share this conversation with someone who needs it. So part 4, dealing with someone else's emotional reactions. Chapter 7 is bluntly titled, When Grown-ups Throw Tantrums.
And we have to get real about this. Adult emotional outbursts can mirror Kid Fit's perfectly explosive office rants, passive-aggressive behavior at home, or that silent family sulk that just freezes everyone out.
It's so disruptive because we expect adults to be regulated. So when they aren't, it triggers our own need to either fix their mood or fight back defensively.
The strategy Robbins advocates for is highly effective. Spot the inner child driving the behavior.
The inner child.
Yes. When an adult reverts to a child's mechanism for coping because of perceived unfairness, a loss of control, or an unmet need, you have to recognize it as a regression, not a frontal attack. You respond to the vulnerability beneath the tantrum with compassion, not by engaging the tantrum itself.
You interrupt the cycle.
Exactly. She details a turning point involving a ruined dinner where a tantrum just wrecked the evening. The initial impulse is to fight back about the ruined plans, but by applying the let them framework, she was able to detach and observe the pattern of the tantrum.
And what happened?
By naming and acknowledging the underlying unmet need, rather than fighting the resulting behavior, the situation shifted from defensive combat to genuine reconnection. You create a safe space for the core issue to surface.
This seems especially relevant now. Post-pandemic, emotional whiplash is a real thing. Volatility seems higher than ever.
Which is why it's so important to maintain boundaries while remaining kind. This is a perfect place to redeploy the ABC response assess, breathe, choose during a confrontation.
Okay, let's apply ABC to a classic U.S. workplace scenario. A coworker throws a public tantrum shouting, slamming things when a project deadline is unexpectedly moved up.
Your initial urge is to absorb the volatility, try to calm them down, or maybe yell back. But let them allows you to hold your professional ground.
So you assess the behavior as a tantrum. You breathe to interrupt your own defensive urge.
And you choose a non-reactive, firm response. You focus on the calm delivery of facts and the boundary. I understand the deadline shift is frustrating. I'm going to step away. We can discuss the new plan when you're using a calmer, professional tone,
You're letting their frustration exist on their side of the fence.
without letting it dictate your behavior or emotional state.
Handling others' emotions is tough, but making tough choices for yourself is often tougher. Don't miss Chapter 8. Like, subscribe, and share this journey to freedom.
Chapter 8 plunges us into the deep end of personal choice. It's called The Right Decision Often Feels Wrong. And it's about those gut-wrenching, major life decisions that involve immense short-term ache.
These are the choices we avoid because the emotional disruption feels unbearable. We prioritize a perceived stability over genuine peace.
We avoid the right decision because the temporary pain of change feels more threatening than the chronic, low-grade misery of the status quo.
And Robbins provides a maxim that defines this chapter.
Short-term ache beats lifelong regret. It is the fundamental equation of personal freedom. The choices that offer the greatest long-term liberation require the greatest courage to initiate that immediate pain.
The examples she gives are things like ending a long-term but corrosive relationship or ditching a high-paying but toxic job.
Or the specific example she uses, canceling a massive life event like a wedding that has become purely performative or financially crushing.
That one is so powerful because it involves disappointing a massive network of people, friends, family, vendors, all for one person's peace.
Right. And the bride's decision, which felt fundamentally wrong because of the financial fallout and the public humiliation, actually unleashes profound immediate freedom. She chose her sanity over temporary social expectation.
There's a cognitive bias at play here, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. It's status quo bias and loss aversion. Our brain is wired to resist the pain of disruption more than it resists the pain of existing unhappiness. It's a survival mechanism that can trap us.
This feels really relevant in this current era of life pivots. The remote work boom, people rethinking their careers, we're being asked to trust ourselves amid massive uncertainty.
You have to trust your internal compass, even if everyone outside is questioning it. Consider this U.S. Live example. The decision to leave a six-figure, high-status, but soul-crushing job in the tech industry, say in Silicon Valley or Seattle, to prioritize mental health, knowing it will result in financial instability for a while.
The pressure from parents who prize that stability would be intense. You're throwing away your future.
And let them means letting the parents worry, letting former colleagues question your sanity, and letting go of the need to explain or justify your decision. You hold on to the hard-won peace you gained, knowing the short-term ache is paving the way for a sustainable, healthy future defined by your metrics.
Now that we've established personal boundaries, let's tackle the monster that lives on our phones. Chronic comparison. Like, subscribe, and share as we transition to Part 5.